In this tutorial, I want to talk to you guys about using if statements in Python. Now, if statements are a special structure in Python where we can actually help our programs to make decisions. So by using an if statement, I could execute certain code when certain conditions are true, and I could execute other code when other conditions are true. So basically, if statements allow our programs to respond to the input that they're given. So depending on the data that we're using in the program, our programs will be able to respond. So when certain data is certain values, we can do certain things. And when other data is other values, we can do other things. So your programs are essentially becoming a lot smarter. And actually, if statements are things that we as human beings deal with every day. So, as you go throughout your day, generally you're dealing with if statements all the time. So I want to kind of give you guys a brief introduction into if statements, and we'll talk about some of the common if statements that you'd see in everyday life. And then we'll go ahead and do a really awesome example to kind of show you guys what if statements can do for us. So over here in my text editor, I just have this little text file, and in here I wrote out a bunch of if statements that a lot of people will encounter on a daily basis. So here's the first one. It says, I wake up, if I'm hungry, I eat breakfast. And so let's break this down a little bit. Up here it says, if I'm hungry, and this is a condition, right? This is either going to be true or it's going to be false, right? If it's true, I'm going to go ahead and eat breakfast, right? If it's false, I'm just going to skip whatever was in here and move on, right? So that's the basics of an if statement, right? We have a condition, in this case, if I'm hungry. If the condition's true, then we do the action, so we eat breakfast. Otherwise, we just skip it. So down here we have another one. It says, I leave my house. If it's cloudy, I bring an umbrella. Otherwise, I bring sunglasses. And so this one is a little bit more complex than the one we just looked at. You'll see we have our condition, right? It says, if it's cloudy. If that condition's true, we're going to bring the umbrella. But in this case, if the condition's false, there's something else that we want to do. So in the case up here, if this condition was false, we just moved on. But now, if this condition's false, then we're going to go ahead and bring sunglasses. So that's another example of an if statement. It's a little bit more complex. Finally, I have one more down here, and this one's even more complex. It says, I'm at a restaurant. If I want meat, I order a steak. So if this condition's true, we order the steak. But if this condition is false, then we're going to move on, and we're actually going to check another condition. So I'm going to say, otherwise, if I want pasta, I order spaghetti and meatballs. This is another condition. If this condition's true, we get the spaghetti. If it's not true, then finally we're going to move on down here and we'll just default to ordering the salad. So all three of these if statements are valid if statements. It's just they get more and more complex as we go down the list. So hopefully that's, you can kind of wrap your head around what if statements are. We're basically specifying conditions. If those conditions are true, we're going to do certain things. And if those conditions are false, we can do other things, or we can check other conditions. All right, so let's head over to our Python file and we'll start writing some actual Python. So in here in my app.python file, I want to create an if statement. And I'm going to show you guys a very basic if statement in this tutorial. And then in the next tutorial, we're going to look at some more advanced if statements. And so what I want to do is create a Boolean variable. So I'm going to create a Boolean variable that's going to store whether or not the user is a male. So it's just going to be called is_male. And I'm going to set this equal to true because I'm a male. So we have this Boolean variable, right? And right now we have it set equal to true. I can actually use an if statement to check to see what the value of this variable is. And if it's true, I can do something. So if I want to use an if statement, all I have to do is just type out if, and then I just need to type out a condition. So basically I would have to type out something that's going to be true or false. Like, for example, in the other page, we were specifying if I'm hungry or if it's cloudy. Here, we're just going to check to see if is male. So in other words, if the person is male. And so remember, this has to be it has to be able to be reducible to a true or a false value. So in our case, we're just using a Boolean because that's the easiest thing we can do. So I said if, I specified my true or false condition, and now I want to just type a colon. And what I want to do now is make a new line. And so anything that I put below this with an indentation is actually going to be executed when that condition's true. So I could put print, and down here I could just put you are a male. And now you'll see what happens when I run this program. It's going to go down here and it's going to say you are a male. But if I changed is male to false, so instead of this being true, I just change it to false, now all of a sudden it's not going to print anything. So it's just going to be blank down here. That's because this condition wasn't true. So anything that I put below this if declaration and that has an indentation like that is going to be executed when the if statement is true. We can also use another keyword in Python, which is called else. And else is basically going to be like otherwise. So you remember before we said, if it's cloudy, I'll bring an umbrella. Otherwise, I'll bring sunglasses. Well, this is going to be like our otherwise. So I can say down here, else. And now anything that I put below else is going to get printed out when that condition isn't true. So why don't we just put, you are not a male. So now we're able to cover both of the situations for this variable. If it's false, we can cover that situation. So it says you are not a male. If it's true, we can cover that situation as well. So it'll say you are a male. So that's pretty cool. But we can also make these more complex. And actually, before I talk about that, you can put as much code as you want inside of an if statement. So I could have like, dozens of lines of code if I wanted. I'm just giving you a simple example. So why don't we make this more complex, and I'm gonna add another variable into the mix. So I'm gonna add another, Boolean attribute into this mix. I'm gonna make another variable called is tall. And we're gonna set this equal to true as well. So now I have two variables in the mix. Let's say